Good morning, and we are live, Coffee with Rich, on a beautiful Friday morning, July the 9th. And I am not in my studio this morning, as you'll see from this beautiful artwork behind me. I'm actually in a friend's beautiful home in South Carolina for a little quick visit. And as we're waiting for people to get on, let's talk about sponsors, and I'll introduce this morning's guest. Sponsors for the American Warrior Show, which this is what this is, Coffee with the Rich, brought to you by the American Warrior Show. Some of our amazing sponsors like Cool Fire Trainer. You've heard me say it many times before, folks. Ammunition prices are through the roof. You want to continue working your dry fire. One of the easiest way you can do that is with the Cool Fire Trainer. We also have Precision Holsters, sponsors of the American Warrior Show. Precision Holsters makes the Ultra Appendix holster. They also make the competition line that Mike Seeklander and I both use. We also have Century Martial Arts as a sponsor of the American Warrior Show. Century Martial Arts, makers of the Bob XL. Bob XL, you want to take your striking game to the next level, you're going to need a Bob XL. You want to work on a little ground and pound because you're getting ready for the Conor McGregor fight this weekend. You can do it with the Century Martial Arts Bob XL. You also have APPHemp.com, which is Appalachian Standard, makers some of the finest CBD products money can buy. You got some stiff joints like I do. You want to sleep better, better cognitive functioning. I cannot recommend their CBD products enough. Appalachian Standard. Check them out over at APPHemp.com. But the easiest way to find all of our sponsors is to follow the link that I've put for you today in the show notes, AmericanWarriorShow.com. Go over there. They've got links to everything with amazing discounts that you can only find if you're a viewer of the show. Last but not least, I want to talk about Mountain Man Medical, because our co-branded trauma kit is finally available. And Shan, I've got one here in front of me. Yeah, the co-branded trauma kit. It also comes with a cat tourniquet. So I'll probably do a show on there. I got Brian McLaughlin coming back on, and we'll actually break down the contents of this, and you'll find out what we got in here. But they're finally not on back order anymore. You can actually pick one up by clicking the link in the show notes today to the co-branded American Warrior Society and Mountain Man Medical co-branded trauma kit. Let's see who we got on this morning, sir. We got 15 folks joining us already. Please hit that share button. We got John from Yukon, Oklahoma. He has coin number 1919. Dan Mueller from Flowery Branch, Georgia. Good morning. Coin number 1968. Mr. Will Parker is on, coin number 800. He says, good morning, Shan. I think we're getting a little bleed back there on your end. Linda is on from Fort Worth, Texas. Tony is on from Brunswick, Georgia. Please hit that share button. Brett Parker, California. It's an early morning where you are, Brett. Coin number 876. And Shan, you have a coin number, I believe. You're a member of the American Warrior Society.
Yes, sir. I think it's right there. I don't know if we can get that focus in, but it says 044.
And let's read Shan's bio real quick so you know who I'm joined by. Shan is the founder of Werkz LLC, which equips citizens and professionals with holsters for their light-bearing pistols. Shan has carried concealed since 1990 and started Werkz in 2010 out of a passion for designing holster solutions. Finding a lack of quality holsters for pistols with lights, Shan focused the company on providing light-bearing holsters. Shan's high-tech engineering background helps drive detailed improvements in both of the design and manufacturing of light-bearing holsters. Shan established a low-light defense to provide the community with quantifiable and unbiased information on weapon and handheld lights. Shan holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, an MBA, and a Juris Doctorate, and is a member of the Oregon State Bar. Good morning, Shan, and welcome to Coffee with Rich.
Good morning. Happy Friday to you.
Yeah, you too, sir. We got a lot of really cool stuff to talk about. If you're just joining us this morning, it looks like Mr. Mike Seeklander is on. Elkie Monroe out in Colorado. My good friend Stephen Washington is on up there in Michigan, coin number 2003. Alan Kelly from occupied Virginia, coin number 1571. And my good friend Jimmy Helly is on up in Rhode Island, 1966. Will, good morning. He says, good morning, Rich and Shan. Please hit that share button, guys. We've got a great show. I tell you what, you're not going to find information like this anywhere other than this show today, because what Shan and his company has been able to do is take a lot of the subjectivity out of the weapon-mounted light arena and really subject it to some qualitative and quantitative analysis that is really going to be something you're going to want to share today. So Shane, welcome.
Make sure I'm off mute. Yes. Thank you. We're really excited about what we're doing. And I think it's a way for us to contribute something new, different, and unique to the community. My problem was I was looking at different weapon mounted lights and going, okay, there's a lot of discussion on the internet, including a lot of weird YouTube videos about which weapon mounted light is best. But I can only get so much information by seeing a guy shine his flashlight across the yard. There is actually ways to quantify the amount of light coming out of a pistol, or sorry, out of a flashlight. There's actually ways to look at it and determine how many candela are coming out, and to actually measure things in ways that the manufacturers don't even give you. So I wanted to go ahead and start gathering that data up, putting it into a way that's consumable for folks, and then providing it out to the community.
What made you take on this, this problem and try to solve it? I mean, there's a lot of problems out there with the concealed carry. Why did you focus on lights?
Well, and really it's just a business decision about being in a niche for one thing. But the other thing is I feel, and our team here at Werkz feels, that everybody should be carrying with a light. A lot of violent encounters happen in the dark or in a low light situation. If you're carrying a pistol, you have the responsibility, both a moral and a legal responsibility, to identify what you're pointing that pistol at, and if you take a shot, what you're shooting at and why. And if you can't identify your target, then you shouldn't be taking a shot. There's a lot of bravado out there about, okay, if there's somebody in my house at night, I'm just going to shoot them. Well, you and I both know that it could be a son coming in late, or a drunk neighbor, or whatever. And actually, I know people who have had exactly that happen. A drunk neighbor trying to, enter their house. So we felt that it's important for people to carry a weapon mounted light. And then with that, it's important for people to make an informed decision.
Absolutely. Jason is on. He says, good morning from occupied Northern Virginia. The chair is against the door. I love it. Yeah. If you know what that means, John has a long mustache, right? Nick is on. He says, good morning from Charlotte, North Carolina, coin number 2127. Good morning, Nick. We are in the Marines together. Semper Fi, brother. Mr. Mike Seeklander says, good morning, Shan.
Good morning, Mike.
And you have one of Mike's books there, don't you, Shan?
I do. Well, and this is probably good for folks. Even though I'm trying to contribute in this area, we've got the gentleman who literally wrote the book on low light shooting and combatives. He's on the line. Yeah.
Good morning, Mike. Greg is on. He says, good morning, Rich. Greg from Texas, coin number 2060. Rasmus is on. He says, good morning, Rich. And good morning, Shan. Thank you to the 25 folks. Please hit that share button, man. I want to, you sent me some time ago your website. I believe that you guys are behind, the lowlightdefense.com. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So we need a place where we can gather up the data, right? So we are taking an incredible amount of data with regards to, weapon mounted lights, and we need to put it out there in a place where folks can get at it. We are starting to produce some YouTube videos as well, but I want a place where people can actually delve into the data, because there's so much detail in the light realm, and a lot of things that people aren't even thinking of. So we created lowlightdefense.com, and it is I can actually do a quick shot here. We've got up here, like, for instance, hey, here's a shootout between the king of the hill, the U-boat, the Surefire X300U, and a bunch of lights on the market, including, of course, the Streamlight TLR1 HL and Enforce and an O-Light and a number of others. So, hey, you know what? You want to learn more about that sort of that sort of light, we wanted to go ahead and provide data for it. So we've got a bunch of information out there. Given our industry, we get a lot of questions from folks about, okay, will this light work on this pistol, or should I choose this, or how does this work? We're just collecting all this out there. We've also invested in a little bit of laboratory equipment. It looks kind of space age, but I'll go ahead and show that again. But we've got some laboratory equipment here on site where we can do all of our own testing in-house. You can see there's a TLR7 sub sitting inside that light integrating sphere. We want to go ahead and provide real objective quantifiable data that folks can use. And hopefully, as a result of all this, we'll get the industry to be better, and we'll get all of us to get better products too.
Yeah, and that's one of the things a lot of people don't consider. It's the industry, and that is, can I just look at the manufacturers? Are the testing protocols not the same across the industry?
Exactly. So, there are people out there saying, okay, does Olight overestimate the amount of lumens their light puts out? Is Surefire, do they consistently underestimate? Well, I've got data that tells you what they do. So we've actually got that for like those full-size lights, and we're going to be gathering it up for the compact lights. We've got some data around the subcompacts. We'll do handhelds. We'll do weapon-mounted lights, rifle-mounted lights. I carry a mod light on me. Well, how good is that really? There's a million lights out there. Let's see how they do.
Yeah, I love it. Guile is on from the Philippines. Good morning, Guile. Good morning to my jiu-jitsu coach is on. Cody Hudson is on. Cody, I was watching those par times you were running on Instagram, man. That's pretty freaking phenomenal. Memphis is on. Good morning, sir. I got Memphis coming up, I believe Monday, right, sir? Looking forward to that. They're going to have a good conversation there. He is coin number 1751, and Mark Hamilton is on from Ontario, Canada. We got a really diverse group this morning. My brother Jeff Brown is on down in Key West. He just rode out the storm. So weapon-mounted lights, man, there's a lot of folks on here this morning, Shan, that will remember the day. I remember running a D-cell mag light that I had attached to my not even M4 back then, an M16A2. Or, back in the day when I was a police officer, there was no such thing as a weapon-mounted light, right? We had to run around with a light on our tool belt and integrate it with a handgun. It was crazy. Now we're in such an amazing place. If only we could get our hands at unbiased objective data, which is again focusing on your company and what you guys are doing. I think you guys are leading the way. Nobody else is doing this that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I was out there looking before we started this, and I couldn't find any objective data. So yeah, and you're right. The industry has progressed a huge amount, and we're blessed in this day to be able to just buy for say $150 a custom fitting weapon mounted light that fits the exact weapon that we've got, and it works well. The switches are well, and it's reasonably reliable. It's reasonably compact. We can even find holsters for it. We are continuing in a golden age of firearms capability and firearms accessories. And, this is a great time for consumers, right? You can find what you need.
It is. But, again, like you said, your company Werkz.com, check out the holsters over there. You guys have kind of pioneered but I've got this Glock 19 and I want to run a TLR2 on it. Where can I get the holster? And, scouring the internet. So you've taken a lot of that work out and given people a place to buy those kind of match the handgun to the light, right?
Yeah, and there are a number of companies out there doing it. We grew up in an era where we were doing custom holsters, so we would actually take a mold for the pistol and an actual light and mold them together. Anymore, we've gotten to be a lot more high tech than that, but our mission is the same, which is to go and get the widest selection of pistols and lights possible for good marketable pistols, good marketable lights. What that means is we've got the most popular lights on the Glocks and many of the SIGs, full size, compact. We're doing a lot more with the P365 and the Glock G43X and the G48. We're working to get all those gaps filled, and we're producing new molds every day for lights. So back to being high tech. There's the old way where you kind of form kydex around a model, but now we've got the ability to go ahead and form kydex around a custom CNC cut mold. And I'm sure your sponsor Precision Holsters does something very similar. Hey, we've got our own molds. We go ahead and form the holster around that. And then we automate around the rest of the process to try to get a very precise, repeatable holster every time. But you've got Precision Holsters, which has their products and their lines. We're specializing in pistols with lights and lasers, and I think that we've got one of the wider selections.
Yeah. Steve Miller is on this morning. Says, good morning. Greg Gomez says warranty is also key to a good light. Brett Parker says no mounted light and only 6 rounds before a reload back in the day. And my good friend Brett, of course, was a retired California law enforcement officer. Stephen Washington says, Shan, my EDC holster is a Werkz for my SIG 365. Mike Varley is on. Says, good morning from Michigan, 1122 coin number. Says, if you have a holster for a Glock Model 45 with a Streamlight TLR2 HL, take my money.
Boy, I wasn't even aware that they HL'd. Oh, yeah, that's right. The TLR2 HL. Yep. We have specialized more in lights than lasers, and the TLR2 has that laser sitting there. If we've got enough demand, we'll make it for anything. So Mike, hit me up offline. We'll see if we've got enough demand, and I can do it. We've got a database where we collect all the demand for various configurations like that.
So here's the deal, man. I thought you could just get the lumens rating from the manufacturer, line up a comparison. I mean, what more do you need to do there, Shan?
Yes, exactly. So, the manufacturers do provide a lumen rating, and that is a decent baseline to start. The problem is lumens only tell you a little bit. So when I've got a lumen rating from a manufacturer, let's say it's 800 lumens or 1,000 lumens, well, it doesn't tell you anything about how long that lasts, right? So they give you runtime numbers, Streamlight and Surefire for their big lights. They say 1,000 lumens, 1.5 hours or 1.25 hours. Well, is it going to give you 1,000 lumens for? No, that's one thing. The other thing is do I know that Streamlight and Surefire actually use the same testing equipment, the same testing system? Is it all fully calibrated? How long do they run the light before they actually start taking measurements? Then the other thing is, and this is big, lumens only tells you the total output. A 60-watt incandescent bulb will give you about 800 lumens. But I certainly wouldn't want to be walking around with the incandescent bulb trying to see in that dark corner, or even worse, the dark corner that is actually got a light in front of it kind of shining towards me, like you've got a street lamp pointing down, that sort of thing. It becomes progressively harder to punch through those lights if you're not focusing that beam into a nice concentrated hotspot. So lumens tells you total output. And, when I showed that little spacey looking sphere thing, you use that to test for lumens. But if you're only getting total output, you're only getting part of the story. Do you want that total output? Do you need 1,000 lumens for 5 minutes? Well, maybe if you're searching your house, I've never cleared my house in less than 5 minutes.
No. So maybe we need to back up, Shannon. And what does someone need to consider before buying a light for their firearm?
So first is, what do we use the lights for? So lights give us information. That information is used for things like navigation. Can I see where the heck I'm going? It's going to be used for searching. Hey, can I see into that corner? Can I see over there? It's going to be used potentially for communication. You're working in a team, or you've got a wife and you're like, hey, you know what? There's somebody in there. So now you need to actually illuminate your hands so that you can give hand signals to people. And it is used potentially for identification. Hey, I see somebody there, show me your hands. Well, now you need to get the light on their face and on their hand. You need to see enough in their hands so that you know what the heck's going on. And then it can be used even for control. So control being, okay, I shine this super high output light right in their eyes, and they're doing this, or they're aggressively approaching me. Well, typically your person who's not a threat is going to back up. They're going to cover their eyes. They're going to do something more defensive when they get shot in the eyes with a light. So those are the reasons why we've got it. Then from there, if you want to select a light, there's so many factors, right? I was writing them down, and it's a long list, right? And I think I saw somebody in here jump into, okay, well, warranty is also a good factor in there as well. You've got cost, right? Can you afford to buy it? You've got size. Hey, is this thing going to be too big to carry around, right? If I've got a X300U, am I going to want to stick that on my 6-hour P365? You've got pistol attachment. Gee, can you even attach the X300U to your P365? By the way, the answer is no. Cosmetics. Do you like the way it looks? Some people, actually, and it's a real factor, some people don't like it when the light sticks out beyond their muzzle. Some people actually prefer their light to stick out beyond their muzzle, because if they're using it for striking, it doesn't take the pistol out of battery, or at least less chance. You've got switches. Switches are really important. That's how you interface with that light, and that's how it gets you, turning it on, turning it off. You've got constant, you got momentary, you've got the DG style switches in the grip. You've got the batteries, you've got rechargeability if that's something that you're going to go with. Then we've got all the geeky stuff, right? Lumens, runtime, candela, your beam pattern, your color of your light. By the way, color makes a difference. A warmer light tends to pick up browns and greens a little bit better. A bluer light picks up blues a little bit better. Your beam pattern, how wide is it? How tight is it? How hot is that hot spot that's in the center? Reliability. Okay, you've got switches. They're mechanical things. They break. You've got parasitic drain. There are some manufacturers out there that have been plagued with parasitic drain issues. Why does that matter? Well, if you put your pistol in your holster and you're not testing it every day, you might find out one day that it's not actually working. Shock, vibration, water and sweat, and then holster availability. And we've already talked about that. So you've got a myriad of things that people could potentially be considering in their weapon-mounted light. And there's probably 100 different marketable weapon-mounted lights out there. And we've probably got, 100 to 200 different marketable pistols out there. And they can all be mixed and matched.
Yeah. Those are great points, man, and a lot of things that I'm sure many of us haven't even considered this morning. My lovely bride, Miss Lisa, says good morning from the low country of South Carolina. Good morning, Miss Lisa. I know she's in the other room having coffee. Bruce is on, says good morning, AWS coin number 481 from Michigan. And we have Gary on from Norman, Oklahoma. Tony asked the question, Shan. He says, lumens or candela? Is it as simple as one or the other, or do I need both?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, and that's one of those geeky things that we're focusing on. I'm going to see if I can pull up my my low light, my information here from Low Light Defense, and I'm going to go ahead and share some things while I'm talking. So, so lumens give you total brightness. So I'm going to show you, here's the PL Pro, which is kind of the lumen king out of this test set. And you can see in this image, hopefully it comes across for folks that are watching online, how much total light gets put out into that garage there. So that is a lumen thing. And you can see the motorcycle in the center is pretty well lit. But you also get a lot of output, a lot of flood out there so that you can see the surrounding area. This happens to be the Wild 2, which actually is the Candela King out of them. And you can see what they did is they took actually a lesser amount of lumens and they focused it into a tighter hotspot. What that gives you is that range. So lumens gives you that total brightness or that total output, and then candela goes ahead and gives you the ability to see further. And the other thing that candela does is it actually, if you're at the receiving end of this light, I'm going to we'll show you this person at the receiving end of the light of the Wild 2. If you could actually see the expression on his face, he is actually grimacing because it becomes painful when you get a lot more candela onto the subject and into their eyes. So lumen gets you that total output, and that allows you to do things like see a little bit wider. And X300U is really good at providing, actually, the version that we've got, which is a very recent version, does not provide as much of a hotspot, but it provides a lot of flood. So you can see all sorts of details all the way around. But the Wild 2 has more of a hotspot, and you can see less details at the fringes. So it comes down to, as always, it depends. What is your mission? Are you always working just in tight spaces and you want to see as wide an area as possible? Well, then you're probably looking for lumens, but you're also looking for those lumens to be out in more of a flood type pattern. Okay, are you kind of mixed where you need a little bit of flood, but you need to be able to punch out there 40 feet, 100 feet, I know, Rich, you've got property. I've got property. There's times I need to see out there quite a ways. Well, the candela is what lets me see out there quite a ways. So good question. I don't know who asked it, and that was awesome. Tony.
Yeah, and please like and share. Once again, we're joined this morning by, if someone just shared this and you're like, who are these folks? My name is Rich Brown, the co-host, co-founder of the American Warrior Society, American Warrior Show, America's #1 self-defense podcast. And I'm a retired Marine Corps officer, former police officer, et cetera. And I've got Shan Hemphill this morning from Werkz, and we're discussing something really incredible that they put together over there. And the name of the website, beyondwerkz.com, is lowlightdefense.com. And I've got all the links you need in the show notes today. And the next question, Shan, that is coming in this morning is, William says, good morning, Rich. Good morning, William. And thank you to the 30 folks that are joining us this morning. Greg says, is there a case when a light is too bright for home defense, i.e. too many lumens?
Okay, so this is an area where we're in religion now.
Opinions vary. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me say first, it is true. you can blind yourself with your light. So I've got a mod light here. This is what I carry on my belt. It is one of the super bright lights out there. It is bright. So I get up in the middle of the night. I go ahead and instead of hitting the floor, I go ahead and I splash the corner of a wall or something, right? I go ahead and I put it into a mirror. I'm shining it around and I put it into a mirror, that sort of thing. I'm using Mike's temple index and doing that, and I hit a mirror. Okay, so yes, your eyes actually, after about 45 minutes in the dark, they actually acclimate, and they actually have chemical changes in your eyes that change them and change how they operate, and they become a lot more sensitive to light. And yes, you can blind yourself. There's two parts to that. One is blinding yourself is temporary. And the second is there's techniques to avoid it. So, and let me expand on that quite a bit. So you go ahead and you blind yourself. You're like, okay, now my eyes, I can't see very well. What do you do? Typically people will go ahead and turn their light off. They'll go ahead and redirect it down. They'll close their eyes. Maybe not a bad thing, not a good thing in a defense situation, but you can make adjustments. And then once you have a bright light, you can get that light, get it redirected around, get it back illuminating the area. And the fact that it's bright is going to overcome some of that night blindness that you just gave yourself, right? So you shine the light in your eyes and now you're kind of blind. The other thing is typically, if you're clearing a room, you're searching, you're going to be starting near to far. You're going to be starting close to you. You're going to be wanting to illuminate that area. So now you're hitting kind of the floor and you're splashing that light back up. Or say maybe I'm running a weapon mounted light. Maybe I've got little ones running around. Maybe I'm running up and I'm splashing off the ceiling. So
is that the umbrella technique?
Yeah, that's the umbrella, and then baseboard is down. So typically you're going to be working in a way that allows you to splash the areas that you need to hit, and work that up. The advantage of having more lumens means that, when I showed the picture of the guy going, well, if you've got a lot of light, you can see a lot better. Not only can you see better, but you can also make it harder for the other guy to see. And we've started trying to create a subjective analysis of this. So we've used that same subject and we've hit him with all these lights kind of in the eyes. And he has ranked these things from, that's painful. That is like, it takes a lot of effort just to keep looking at it, to, yeah, you know what? I don't want to look at it. And by the way, when it's painful, typically what you just see is just a wall of light. So you're at 40 feet, you hit somebody in the eyes with a wall of light. Well, now they're going to have a real hard time locating you and shooting at you. In 40 feet, a lot of times people have a hard enough time putting rounds on target at 40 feet. If you're dealing with a criminal who's just going to be shooting in the general direction, you've significantly disabled him with your light intensity, right? So you've got a huge advantage when you've got that. The other thing is you need light intensity to punch through other lights. So we've also tested where our subjects holding this, actually it's a variation of this light with a different head on it, and shining it at the camera. Well, to see definition when you've got an opponent with a light, or you've got a street lamp and they're behind that area, you've got to have even more intensity to see that. just yesterday, the day before, I was doing some low light training in a shoot house, and there was a bright light sitting in a chair, and the guy was behind the chair. Well, with a lower lumen light, you just couldn't see the guy. He's kind of hiding behind a chair with a gun. You need that light intensity to go ahead and punch through that, especially if you're trying to keep your distance, right? So I've got a shop, 100 feet behind my house. I want to see through the window there, right? Well, it's really hard to get a low lumen light, a low candela light to punch through that. You want more light. So in short, yes, you can blind yourself. Yes, there are techniques, go do your low light training. There are techniques to avoid that. And there are significant advantages to having the higher output. So I've gotten to the point where I almost never blind myself, but your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I like it. It is kind of a religion. And I tell you what, I'm coming around more to the face melting candela crowd as the years go on, because I think there's a lot of things that we can do to mitigate the blinding effect of hitting a wall. And again, a lot of this isn't just academic curiosity, right? I mean, I was a third shift police officer. I've had to search a lot of structures at night, and of course, being a guy who used to teach military operations in urban terrain, searching structures at night with a rifle squad is a dangerous, dicey proposition. And then, of course, I had I guess a year and a half ago, this guy trying to steal my truck or whatever in my driveway, and it was at night, and I had to use, a lot of the things that we're talking about here. So I think that people that aren't running a light or don't see the need for it, I think you're really behind the power curve. And before I want you to kind of address that, but let's also welcome Manher from South Africa. We got a really continental crowd this morning, very international, cosmopolitan. Mike says, can you touch on activation switches, toggle versus the grip switch? Yeah, I'd love to. Let's do those two questions, Shan, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so activation, I happen to have DLR1 HL here. I've also got the X300 here. Boy, I've got some other lights sitting over there. I've got all the lights. So there's actually probably 3 main activation switches on the market today, and then we've got Veridian's got their additional thing that uses a magnetic switch to go ahead and activate the light. So you've got the toggles, and think we're clear. So you've got the toggles, and with this, so this is a turn it one way. Let's see if I can get it in there. Turn it the other way. So that's a toggle style switch, and the Surefire, actually the momentary is a push forward sort of thing. And see if I can, there we go. And actually, you just push that forward. The Streamlight's a little similar, except for the momentary's in a different spot. And then you've got ones that, like the TLR7A, uses just a button to push forward. The O-Lights use a button to push down or inside. You've got a number of them out there. They all work. I think the real question tends to be, this activation can be reaction hand. Let's see if I can get in there. Reaction hand. And then as I'm coming up and pressing out, I'm pressing down, which gets that light on. And then I can wrap my finger around it. Let's see there. And then I can pull back, and that goes ahead and turns it off. So activate, deactivate. Or I could do it the other way, which is roll my hand across it as I'm lifting up and then activate it. Although with the Surefire, I find that doesn't work as well. It works a little bit better on the Streamlight with the larger switches. So you've got that type of activation, and then you've got a momentary thing, which, like I say, is, you press forward. The question is, are you really going to use momentary? And there's some degree of religion there as well. If you're going to use momentary, there's the TLR7A, for instance, has switches that you press on the back, and they're good switches. But if you want momentary, you press on it and you hold. And then when you want it to turn off, you let go. So scenario is I come into a room or an area and I need to splash that corner real quick, and I don't need my light for navigation, right? So back to what do you use the light for? Navigation's one of those things. You don't want to be tripping over the pile of clothes. You don't want to step on the Legos without shoes. You need that. You need your light for navigation. Let's say I know it's my house. I know I got up, I came out of my bedroom, I need to splash a corner real quick. I go ahead and with my reaction hand, go ahead and activate that light real quick. And then I turn off because I'm looking to see if there's somebody hiding in that corner. In this case, I probably don't think so, because if I actually thought so, then I would probably have that light constantly on and I would have been pieing the corner as I came around to look into that corner. But I wanted to splash it real quick. Say I heard something outside, but I wasn't sure if there was somebody inside. Splash it real quick. I'm going to do that in a couple of spots. There are switches on the market that require that you're on the light for momentary for a certain amount of time. Call it about a half a second. Well, say I want to splash it just for a quarter second. It's almost like a strobe. Again, because I'm familiar with the area and what should be there, what should not. You can't do those with that function with those switches because they require you to be on that switch for half a second. So now you go ahead, you tap the switch, you splash the corner, you're off the switch, you're expecting you can move, but the light stays on. Maybe not the worst thing in the world, but those type of switches do not have the ability to splash momentary for just a split second. The Surefire, the Streamlight with the paddles allow you to do that. Also, the grip DG switches allow you to do that. So you can have that splash for as short an amount of time as possible. So now the question is, okay, and I know Mike is a proponent of the DG grip style switches, and I don't have one on that. The question is, okay, when you're punching out, you want that light on, and you don't want to activate with your finger. Look, I'm negligent discharging the camera. So now you want to not have to do that with this hand. You want to be able to do it one-handed, and you don't want to use your trigger finger on the switch there. So if I'm operating one-handed with this, then what I've got to do is I've got to activate with my trigger finger, and then I can go ahead and activate that light and run that. But maybe I want to do that in a way that's momentary for one hand. Well, I can't really do that with this very well. Yes, I can press forward and up with that. And I can do it to a lesser degree with the TLR1HL. So the DG style switches give you the advantage that when you press out, you're always getting that light. Now the question is if you don't want light, what do? You modify your grip. So that's the only disadvantage with the grip style switches. If you don't want light at that moment and you're pressing out, and for me, I would have to go ahead and change my grip and change how I bring in my reaction hand, because I'm clamping so tight that I can't get off that switch very easily. I have to rotate my strong hand forward a little bit to get it off that switch. So Comes down to preference. Again, there are those grip activation switches for some of the most popular lights out there. Even Streamlight now has one for the TLR 7A. They call it the Contour for the Glock. They only have it for the Glock. And it works pretty well. I'd say whichever way you go, you got to train with it.
That's right. Yeah, I'm probably a bigger fan of the grip activation switches. Obviously, it has, like I said, we're tiptoeing into religion there. I do like the ability to have the gun on one hand and use the other hand to open a door or shepherd a loved one, or it has its pluses and minuses, just like anything else. My brother Jeff says, back in the day, a Coast Guard officer fell to his death because he did not have a light. I use his story in my training all the time, and he's got a link to that story. And my brother Jeff was maritime law enforcement officer, and Coast Guards do seize boats at night, believe it or not. Shan, one of the things I know that you're very fond of saying is that every pistol should have a light on it. Why do you believe that?
Well, yeah, so a number of reasons, and I've got. And by the way, I'm bringing up the article. I want to make sure I don't lose that. That's Jeff. Thanks for the link. So, all right. So when things happen, if you need a light, you need a light, and you need it now, right? So it's great for people to carry a handheld. I carry a handheld, and I carry a weapon-mounted light. I'm carrying that Glock 34 with the X300 is my carry. But you need a light. You got to identify the target, right? So again, it could be daytime. It could be in a well-lit house or structure. Great. You don't really need a light in those cases. Probably not. Although, by the way, I can still use a light to control you during broad daylight. You're not going to enjoy getting shot in the face with a bright handheld light or a weapon-mounted light either way. So there's still an advantage there. But for the cases where it's dark, you've got to identify. You've got your firearm safety rules, right? Never point your muzzle, something you're not willing to destroy. Well, how do you know unless you've got a light? And by the way, with those techniques, baseboard and umbrella lighting, I don't have to point a light at my son who came in late at night to tell that it's my son. Probably I'm going to be working my way through the room anyway, keeping my pistol lower so that I get my broader field of view. I'm probably not going to be bringing it up in front of my face and shining it directly at whatever the potential target is. So you need a light. And if it's attached to your pistol, it's there for you. It's not left on the nightstand, because when I grab my pistol off the nightstand, I grab my pistol off the nightstand and I go, then great, I've got a light attached to it. It's there. It's not sitting somewhere else. I've always got it. It's part of the safety rules. By the way, the other safety rule is know your target, foreground and background. Well, a light gives you that. And when it's a weapon mounted light, then you've got it, you've got it with you. The other thing is, most of us are more accurate when we shoot with two hands. Mm-hmm. Now we're not doing okay, I'm going to shoot this way, do the temple index and then go ahead and bring the pistol up one-handed. Nor am I trying to, bring it underneath or bring it to the side. It's right there. It presents with the pistol. It's with the pistol, and it's actually illuminating the area that you're going to be shining the pistol towards. So I think it's a great way to make sure that you've got your light right there. The other thing, and I found this in my training, is, to be honest, since I carry a separate light and it's a pretty strong one, there's times where I actually want more illumination. I might actually, and by the way, the opening the door thing is also a thing, right? So now I've got to have a light. Now my only light is being used in my reaction hand to go ahead and open my door. Well, maybe I actually want to have that on my weapon. I'm holding it back. I'm splashing the ground. I can open the door with one hand and I can still have light where I need it. So there's that. And then finally, like I say, I actually, since I carry a handheld, I can use both, and I can use both in conjunction. There's some real dark corners in this house that I train in, this facility I train in, and sometimes it just makes sense to go ahead and do baseboard with my pistol, and I'm shining into these areas with my handheld. So there's a lot of good reasons to have both, and I encourage people to have both. But if you're only going to have one, have it on the tool that needs it the most, right? This is a deadly force tool. You better know what you're pointing at.
Yeah, totally. And I was just thinking, when we had dinner in Montana a couple weeks ago, Shan, the light you were running, I think it's that mod light, was actually, you shine it on the ground and it defeated daylight. So, and I say that because I think I want to repeat a couple of the things that you said a moment ago. You said stronger lights can help reduce your opponent's ability to see you. And another important thing that you said, Shan, was that stronger lights are required to punch through the opposing lights. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't consider. Mike and I were doing some training out in Oklahoma probably 2 years ago, and we're with our wives, and we're coming back from dinner. And this wreck happens in front of us. So we jump out of the car, call 911, and we think we're just going to assist the two motorists that have had an accident in this intersection. And when we rolled up on it, this guy falls out of the truck. I mean, literally falls out onto the pavement. I help him over to the sidewalk, and I've got my light out, and I'm looking inside the truck. I'm a former cop, so I'm like, what's going on here? Is there booze involved? I'm looking in the bed of the truck with my light. But again, I had a handheld light. And, but what appeared to be just two motorists, all of a sudden people start yelling, stop that guy. And evidently he was running away. And in the back of his truck was a bunch of car stereos. He'd been caught stealing car stereos. So he starts, he's injured, but he's getting up to take off running as soon as people start saying, stop that guy. And I kind of grab him by the collar. I'm like, well, let's just wait on the police. My point is I say all that to say, not to tell a war story, but it's how things can go from a relatively benign, I'm here to help, to this guy's going to run away, and am I going to really hold him? And what's this going to look like? Is he going to fight? And you're in a low light environment. You can have all those things kind of converge in one big nasty problem really quick.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you also had the incident on your property a year and a half ago or so. Mm-hmm. You were running a weapon mounted light, or no?
I had both. Yeah, I had I think a Glock 19 with a TLR. I don't know if it was a 1 or a 2 on it, and I had a light in my hand because I didn't suspect anything. And so I shined the light when I saw the guy. I drew the gun, so now I've got a light in my hand, my support hand, and the weapon mounted light with a grip activation. So as soon as I gripped the gun, the light came on. But yeah. So again, these things, they happen, and like for you and I, Shan, that have property, I want to be able to see what's going on at my barn before I have to get right up on it, right? I'd like to be able to see long before I get there.
So I've got a question for you. How long were you illuminating the area or the subject? How long were you running your light or your weapon light or your handheld or both in that scenario?
That's a great question. So let's talk about the weapon mounted light. So when I drew the gun and activated the grip activation switch, and I told him, at gunpoint, raise your shirt, turn around, what's your name, who's with you. And by the time I'm getting answers to those things, I'm de-escalating a little bit. I'm stepping off line to get something in between me and him in case he runs, because he's, as I've said many times, he's tweaking and acting crazy. So the gun light was probably only illuminating him for less than 30 seconds, probably. I mean, less than a minute, surely. And then the gun went away, but I kept my hand on it. And then I just kept the other light. Now the other light, it was off and on for the next 15 to 20 minutes as I'm dealing with this guy, which I think is going to lead to the next point, Shan, that you're going to talk about, and that is runtime. You don't get high loom output for an indefinite amount of time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is exactly where I was going, right? So we've got homes, we've got buildings we own, we've got shops, we've got properties. Sometimes we need to spend a fair amount of time on the light. Well, it's really nice to know how long we should have to expect from that light. And I will tell you from my experience, the manufacturers, what they do is they spec their light at about 10% is their runtime. So let me take an example. We've got the X300U, 1,000 lumens, really bright light, great light to run, 1,000 lumens, and it's going to last for, I think they said it's an hour and a quarter. What that means is when you're at an hour and a quarter, you should have 100 lumens. Well, 100 lumens it's fairly anemic, right? So, the question is the light going to have the lumens when you need it? Now, I don't think many of us are going to be running a light continuously for an hour and a half, those sorts of things, but we're probably going to be running it for 20 minutes, right? So if I'm clearing my house and I need to be outside, I'm probably at least 20 minutes to do that in a methodical way, right? If I'm not, moving really quick and actually think that there's a real threat that's going to ventilate me, then I'm probably going to be moving pretty slow. So I probably need at least 20 minutes. So the question is okay, after 20 minutes in, how much light am I going to have? And that is some of the data that we're gathering now as well, which is lumens output over time. So you want high lumen output? Well, guess what? The PL Pro has it for you, but guess what? It's after a minute and a half, it's going to be down to 700 lumens, and you would have been better off with the X300, oddly enough. Or you might have actually been better off even with some of the other lesser known lights on the market, right? The TLR1 HL, well respected, and you can actually see I've got here, I'll get my cursor out of the way. That's the lumen output over time. And by the way, that light just runs and runs. You can see it kind of taps out about 550 lumens and just stays there, but it's there forever. So, if we think 550 lumens is good for getting the job done, well, then you're probably, your TLR1 is going to give you well over an hour at or above that. The X300 gives you quite a bit, and then it does a weird dip and then back up. Lights are complex things. They've got electronics inside. They've got regulation. They use batteries. The batteries do certain things themselves. They have both chemical reactions in them, and sometimes they even have some circuitry in them as well. Regulating that light output as the battery decreases in energy is one of the challenging things that manufacturers deal with. But it's important to know, okay, well, how much light do I have for how long? And oh, by the way, that O light, and it's a fine light, it gives you about 40 minutes of light, and then it's done. It tapped out. And by the way, some of that's, O-Light actually says that they should have a much longer runtime than that. So maybe one of the things we're catching some of the manufacturers at not quite being forthcoming with the exact runtime of their weapon mounted light.
Well, and if you're watching this morning, all the links to Shan's YouTube channel, to the science that he's done, him and his company has done on this topic, all of it is in today's show notes. So please go and look at the data yourself. I encourage you to do that. And Shan, let's say that I'm watching this morning and you've totally convinced me I've got to have a weapon mounted light. Maybe I wasn't running one before. I would just ask you this, man. Aren't lights bulky and uncomfortable? And don't I need a duty holster to run this thing? Come on, man.
Yeah. So we live back to the very start of the show. We live in a blessed age, right? We've got everything available to us. And as a matter of fact, if we don't have the right holsters for you, somebody will, right? So search long enough, hard enough, somebody's going to have it. But yeah, the weapon mounted lights are they're getting smaller, right? So I'm really liking, hey, look, there's the TLR7 sub. So here's oh goodness, let me go ahead and pull that out. There we go. TLR7 sub. This is a tiny, tiny light. It's built for weapons like the Glock 43X, like the P365. It works very well. And by the way, I've got a comparison on low light defense between this and the obvious competitor, the Surefire XSC, which is also just recently out. So we live in an age where you can get a small weapon mounted light that will have a fair amount of output. The sub does quite well. So yes, you can get it. And yes, it does add some bulk to your holster, right? So here's my X300U with the Glock 34. Yeah, it's big. And it adds some bulk, right? So as holsters manufacturers, they all have to create a channel for that light to get in and out of that holster. And that requires that there's a little bit of additional bulk on that holster. That said, lights are slimming down. Holster manufacturers are getting smarter. We're all doing things to try to help reduce print and improve concealment for you, make things more comfortable for you to wear it all day. So, we live in a blessed time. You can get a slim light that has a fairly high output and put it on a slim pistol, and you can find holsters for it.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, we're living in a blessed age. And now we got some questions coming in about batteries, but before we do that, I want to talk about, if you're just joining us, this is what Shan has done. Him and his company over at Werkz is put unbiased, objective data in front of you, the consumer, so that you can make an educated decision. And on the topic of that, the objectivity, Shan, if you could talk to us about what does that even look like? Is your equipment calibrated, certified? What are you doing to do that, man?
Well, let's talk about that. Let me see if I can find my Okay, so what we did is we looked around on the market and we looked for, how do we measure light output? Well, how does any LED company measure light output? There is commercial laboratory style equipment out there for people to go ahead and measure light output. So we invested a sizable sum of money into purchasing that equipment. We purchased it from one of the reputable manufacturers out there, and it actually will tell us, and here's a quick screenshot of the equipment. It'll actually tell us how that light performs. It's actually calibrated. I've got the paperwork on it. It is calibrated and certified to go ahead and provide us both lumen measurements and candela measurements. And most of the lights that we've tested, they've exceeded, the manufacturers have underrated their lumens. And so far our testing seems to indicate that they've overrated their candela. Either that or there's something wrong or different about our equipment versus theirs. And I'm more than happy to have a conversation with any of the light manufacturers out there about how our test equipment could be set up differently. So yeah, we've got it calibrated. It is reliable. It's not a guy doing a light integrating sphere or light integrating tunnel off of using PVC pipe and YouTube videos. It is actual reliable data. And we spend a bunch of time taking every light and every bezel, and so light integrating spheres, what their job is to capture every little bit of light, and then eventually that bounces around and directs down into the meter. Well, you don't want light to be coming back out where you've got the bezel, right? So we actually spend time going ahead and creating a tight fitting bezel and actually having that fit directly into our light integrating sphere so that none of that light escapes.
Okay. What about rifle lights and handheld lights? Are you testing those too, or mostly just the pistol variant?
Well, so we're at the beginning stages of this. So right now, all we've got is pistol data, but I tell you what, I'd sure like to see how this mod light does in there. I'd like to see how this Surefire does, right? So I want all the data. I think that there's a lot of guys out there, and I know I've talked to guys in the industry that want to know, okay, well, what is the real candela output of this light versus the other ones? Well, we will go ahead and provide that data. It's we're at the beginning of a long road. I expect that there will be a large clearinghouse of data there.
Okay, let's talk about the questions come up from Tony and Mike. Tell us about batteries, types of batteries, battery life, everything you can give me on that.
Yeah. So let's break things down into two things first. One is using a, well, there's a few different ways to do this. We've got rechargeable batteries, and sometimes those are integrated, sometimes those are not. And then we've got just regular batteries that are not rechargeable. And there's a Streamlight battery there. And then within each of those types, there's different types of batteries. So you've got the rechargeable. That's become popularized by companies such as Olight that use their magnetic recharging. They've got a little pendant that goes on, and that can be really useful for folks who, that can be really useful for folks if you're going to be running that light and you want it just to top it off every night, and maybe you're discharging it all the time, and you want to go ahead and just not have to worry about buying batteries, keeping batteries on hand, or the cost of batteries. Then you've got the other, the regular non-rechargeable, and those are great for people. Say you're in the field and you don't have a way to easily recharge batteries every night or every day. Maybe you're going to be doing a bunch of training, right? Say you're doing 4 hours of low light training one night and you want to constantly have kind of your batteries topped off. Well, you're probably not going to be doing that with a rechargeable. You're going to need to be swapping those batteries out. And that's where having, just a bag of batteries is really helpful. So that's rechargeable versus not. The larger the battery, the more capacity it's going to have in general. So typically, like the CR13Ns that go into the Streamlight TLR6s, those don't have a whole lot of life. And oh, by the way, Streamlight knows that. So what they do is they actually have that light turn off after 10 minutes. Yeah. So you've got your Streamlight TLR6, you're out, you're searching the house, you're searching your grounds, light goes off. Okay. Probably not a big deal to turn it back on, but it may be surprising at that time. Larger batteries are going to give you more capacity. I really like that Streamlight did the TLR7 sub, and that takes the CR123As, and this light also runs and runs and runs. So in general, I want a larger battery that supports more lumen output. More lumens support more candela or brighter flood area, depending upon what you prefer. Give me a larger battery and I'm going to be happier. I will not, for my personal carry, I'm not going to run something that takes a CR13N. They just don't have the capacity. I will run a TLR7 7A. I will run that sort of form factor light that takes a single CR123A. Rechargeables are beneficial. We actually, with our holsters, with the Olights, we allow people to actually drop in that charging pendant with that pistol holstered, so you can safely charge that up at night. And actually, we've engineered the holster so that if you pick your pistol and your holster up, the pendant will just drop out. So you can go ahead and run an Olight. That's another way to do that. I think that it just becomes, it's trade-offs, right? Do you want something that's rechargeable? Does that fit your lifestyle? Great. Go with an Olight or one of the other manufacturers that has a magnetic charging pendant. You want to be able to swap them out at night? Great. Go get with something with either one or two of the CR123As, or even, the larger rechargeables like this Mod Lite rechargeable. I think that those are all good options. I will certainly run a rechargeable and a flashlight of this Factor, but I also can swap it out. I've got lots of batteries. I can just swap them out. I always keep one hot.
So we've talked about a lot of considerations for selecting a weapon-mounted light, besides lumens and candela. Is there any other considerations I should be aware of?
Lots. Well, so we've got lumens, we got candela, we've got runtime. We've talked about switches. Cost is, I think, obvious for most folks. Light color. We touched briefly on light color. But light color is actually fairly important. It is actually easier for manufacturers of LEDs to produce high intensity, more bluish cast LEDs. Those LEDs tend to shine a little bit bluer, and you've probably seen that either on the road or in flashlights. You pick up a cheap department store flashlight, it's going to have a blue cast typically. We find that flesh tones have better definition using a slightly warmer light. So about 5,500, 5,600 kelvins considered kind of daylight intensity, daylight color. Things less than that on the Kelvin rating tend to be warmer color, kind of the old yellowish headlight sort of thing. And things higher than that tend to be more the bluish color.
Now, are the manufacturers being honest when they put out the color of do they actually discuss the color of the light spectrum on their?
Nobody discusses the color. Nobody really puts the color out there. We've gone ahead and measured it. So, like back to that article on low light defense, we've got both a color analysis and, oh, by the way, lights don't just put out one color. There's a visible color to our eyes, but and that's kind of given a Kelvin rating, but there's actually a spectrum of colors that they put out. So we've got both the spectrometer and the, let's see here. I'll go grab something we can look at here real quick. So if you look here, this is the way the wavelength comes out. And so the PL Pro tends to be a warmer light, and you can see that here. You can see that here where this whole color cast is shifted a little bit to the right, and Kelvin temperature versus wavelength bears a larger discussion, but you can see there's the bluest light that we've got is the Wild 2, and you can see, look at how that's shifted to the left on this graph. It's got the peak on the left, and then it's got that there. So that's a way of contrasting between the two. And oh, by the way, the Nightstick's actually kind of a cooler light as well. So we've got both. And I give you the kind of the color cast, warm versus cool here. We've got that data as well. And this can be a preference thing, but we have found that typically we get a better contrast on subjects, earth tones, flesh tones with a warmer color. And manufacturers aren't going to provide you with that information.
Yeah, good stuff. Scott Schott says, this is an interesting discussion. I'm not familiar with the various lights being discussed, but I'm curious if any effort is going into quick reloading lights that optimize battery exchange.
Well, how quick do you need to change it? So let's take a look at the Streamlight here. Here's the Streamlight, and let's go ahead and swap the battery out. Battery out, put the battery back in. Bezel on, light up. Not terrible. So some of them, go grab my Surefire. So that one, unfortunately, you've got to go ahead and take this off the rail. So that means undoing this, and I tighten my lights down quite tightly. So you've got to actually take a coin or something there. And then you've got to go ahead and open up the rear of the light by using that door. Streamlight has has done more bezel stuff than some of the others, but actually all of the 2 battery lights that I have are out the back, except for the new TLR9. And we will actually be doing a full comparison of the TLR1 versus the TLR9. They're obvious competitors to each other. So the question is, if you've got a light with an hour and a half of runtime, do you need to change the battery while you're clearing the house or something? Or can you take 3 minutes, 5 minutes, do it on a bench? And I don't know if manufacturers have spent time looking at how quickly they can change batteries, especially on the larger output, larger time batteries.
Yeah, my brother Jeff has a interesting point here. It says durability and water resistance, specifically salt, are some of the issues that he's had when he was leading a boarding team with the Coast Guard.
Yeah, and by the way, I'd love to hear more about that, because we actually have a water tank that we plan on testing these lights. So, I've shown some data on 5 of the big light manufacturers, 5 of the full size lights. But I actually plan on running vibration, shock, all sorts of tests on these water tank tests. So, Jeff, I'd love to hear more about how you think we could accurately simulate salt and water in a way that caused destruction for the lights, right? Mm-hmm. Is it a combination of heat and warmth outside, then dunking in salt, and then back outside? Maybe we do that. So I've got this section of the set of lights. I want to run them. I want to take each of them and destroy them.
Yeah, I can imagine. Hey, we've talked about a lot of stuff this morning. What are you running these days, Shan? You want to talk about that?
Well, so this is my Glock 34 MOS. That's running the SRO. I really like the SRO. Really don't care for the MOS mounting system. We could talk about that. And I've got the X300U on here, but I will probably, I'm switching this up. I'm going to be going with TLR1HL. That's going to be my new light. And I'm going to grab my Glock 19X, and I'm going to be running just the regular RMR on that with a milled slide. And I'm actually, instead of running the 34 with the long slide, I've got my 19X, and I'm going to be running a comp on it. So it'll be that length, but it'll be comped. And we're actually going to run some visibility tests, right? So the old adage is, you run a comp, you're going to blind yourself when you're shooting at night. I'm going to get some high-speed video footage, and we're going to see how that works.
Cool. Now, as far as guys, if you're watching this morning, thank you to the 21 folks that are still joining us here in almost an hour and a half into the show. If you have any questions for Shan, this is the opportunity to throw them in there, and we'll see if we can't get to them. But, as far as your handheld light, is that a mod light? Is that what you carry in your pocket?
Yep. So this is the mod light. Mod light has this. This is their larger body. And then it's got a theorem switchback, which with the mod light doesn't work very well for me. I can talk more about that. But and then this has got the PLH V2 head, which is more flood, less hotspot, although this hotspot is way hotter than most. So they've also got the OKW head, which has got a tighter hotspot. It actually will throw farther, but it has less lumens. So back to the lumen versus candela discussion. This one is more lumens, less candela. The other one, which throws farther, is lower lumen, higher candela. So this is really nice light. I liked it enough that I went ahead and I created an on the belt carrier for it. And the other thing I found is sometimes I'm doing administrative tasks where I just need to splash the light off the ground. So I went ahead and I made an open bottom on it.
Nice.
We haven't sold a tremendous amount of those, but I'm running it, so that's all that matters. So the mod light, great light. The mod lights tend to actually have a little bit bluer cast than I prefer. And then the switchback, you hold the switchback like this, and then you can go ahead and flip it around. And if you've got knuckles of the right geometry, then you can go ahead and press on the thumb part against your knuckle, and it'll go ahead and turn that light on. For me, I apparently don't have enough meat on my fingers to go ahead and activate that reliably. So that's why the switchback doesn't work quite as well for me on this light. Although I have tried the switchback on other lights and it works great.
Got a couple of questions coming in. Gerald says, "Won't the exhaust from the comp dirty the light faster?"
Well, the comp directs up, the light's below, and yes, all the light will get dirty. I'm okay with that. Of course, I can see some dirt on this one. I mean, you probably can't quite see it there, but yeah, this has got some dirt on it from shooting. I can live with it. I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I've heard some people say about putting like a little thin coating of Vaseline on the front so that it doesn't, the gunpowder doesn't burn the lens or anything like that, but it could also distort the light, right?
It could. And the company that makes this little switchback, Theorem, they actually produce little cut decals that essentially set on top of your light so that you can then peel them off, kind of like the guys with F1 racing or the motorcycle guys that have the visors that they can just peel it back. So Theorem has that as a product as well. I end up switching my lights out too often. I don't know that I've ever actually cleaned a light.
Ryan says the flash from a comp will not affect your vision. I tend to agree with that. It again is like religion. It has some pluses to the comp and some minuses of the comp and close quarter shooting. Mike says, does the Glock 45 and TLR1 holster work with a grip switch?
That is a good question. I have a grip switch and have I tested it? Actually, I don't have the TLR1 holster here. Email shanh@werkz.com, SHANH@WERKZ.com, and I will get you a definitive answer. We should know that. I should know that. If it doesn't, then I need to redesign it because absolutely we should be supporting the switch. For the regular TLR7A, that with the grip switch on it, we actually redesigned that holster to get the grip switch support.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, and Mike says, thanks. Shan, what questions have I not asked you? I know I've kept you on here almost an hour and a half, man. It's been awesome. But what have we not talked about?
My team just sent me a message, said that the grip switch does work, Mike, does work with our TLR1 holster. Wonderful. So I'm glad to see that Jameson from my team is paying close attention. So what have you not asked? There are a million things about lights. I think really what I'd like is, I'm a tech guy, right? My background really is computers, and certainly done lots of benchmarking using SSDs and storage systems on computers. But my question is, all of you guys that run these things a lot more than I do, you guys who are professionals, warriors out there, is there something you'd like to see us test that we need to test, right? I mean, the salt and water question is something, but you know what? You guys have a wealth of information. You've seen lights fail. You've seen them work well for you and work bad for you. Let me know what you think that we should be testing so that everybody can benefit from your knowledge. So that's my plea is, email me, shanh@werkz.com, or you can go on our website and contact customer service, which will eventually get to me. But I would love to know, what do you guys find works well, doesn't work well? What would you like to see us test? Look through our articles on low light defense and let me know how I'm wrong, and so that we can be better and serve you better.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Shan, we've been on here for about an hour and a half, brother. I want to direct everybody, please check out all the links to Shan's YouTube channel, Ever Works, the lowlightdefense.com, all the things that they're doing over there, because again, they're doing what nobody else is doing, and that is taking an unbiased, objective approach to evaluating the different lights that are on the market and how they're going to keep you and your family and safer. So, and support the mission. If you're one of those guys that are still in the profession of arms, they need lights. And one of the things we talked about earlier, I've had Chris Palmer on here before, and I think he spent 13 years as a full-time SWAT operator in a very large city. And he runs CRV 123s in little canisters on his gun belt, so that he could just, if he does run out, he can peel off the stack, go to the back of the stack, change out the batteries, and get back in the fight. So there's the technology nowadays is absolutely amazing. Let's get to some of
that company also provides vaults for batteries as well.
Yeah, let's see here. Memphis says, got to jump. Great stuff, fellas. Mike says, great stuff today. Tony says, Rich, sounds like y'all are pretty close to my neck of the woods. Yeah, we're in the low country of South Carolina this week. Guile says, Shan, Rich, thank you for a great show today. Very informative. Now, the biggest question, what will I get? Stay safe. Hey, speaking of what you're going to get, man, I'm gonna plug this shamelessly one final time. We finally got these in. I finally got my hot little hands on our co-branded American Warrior Society Mountain Man Medical Trauma Kit. One of the things that made me think of that, Shan, is you said, I get ventilated in the dark. If you're carrying a gun, you need to be able to plug those holes. So my brother Jeff says, thank you for all your time. Alan Kelly says, great info, still instructing night firearms. Yeah, and Alan's a firearms instructor up in Virginia, retired state trooper, so he knows all about that low light fight. Greg says, thank you, excellent show. Where can folks find you at? I know I talked about the link, Shan. Anything else?
Yeah, so we're on lowlightdefense.com. We're on youtube.com as Werkz, and then, of course, werkz.com. And Werkz is spelled kind of funny, Werkz, Zulu. So, yeah, and by the way, Alan says that he's instructing. If anybody's ever instructing anywhere in the Northwest, send me, doing low light stuff. Send me an email. I'd love to come learn from you. So that'd be awesome.
Awesome. Well, Shan, thank you for being a guest on the show today. Check out the links, guys, if you're watching or listening to the show. And I just remind you, like I do every single day, the fight is coming.
Be ready.
Yeah.